Hello friends and welcome back. Thanks for joining us today for another virtual visit. You all might remember our wonderful aquarist Allison. She is here today to share another really cool animal care task with us today. I heard it has something to do with tea, but maybe not this kind of tea. So we are standing behind the scenes of our Rio Negro exhibit, which has some really unusual water. As the name might suggest, it is a special color. But before I give too much away, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Allison to share a little bit more about this really cool thing that she does in our Rio Negro exhibit. So Allison, can you tell our viewers what they're going to be learning about today?
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit more about how we make our Rio Negro exhibit the color that it is. So we're going to be talking about making Amazon River tea, which is also known as black water, and it's what makes the Rio Negro exhibit unique.
Awesome. So I see we have a whole bunch of ingredients behind us, and actually Allison's really awesome and made us a mini version of the Rio Negro tank so that we can actually talk about it as we're looking at all these ingredients. So what do these ingredients do to the water?
Yeah, so I'll show you everything that we have here. So we have Indian almond leaves. These are also known as catappa leaves. We have some oak leaf litter here. We have mulberry leaves. And then we have, we'll use different types of like seed pods from various trees. We will use natural driftwood. And then we'll use things like peat moss. And we even have
I was going to say, these look like tea bags.
Yeah, they are tea bags, not the kind of tea that you'd want to drink.
Okay, noted.
But it works the same way. So these are just tea bags that are filled with crushed up leaf litter. You can even get at pet stores a lot of times a concentrate, a black water concentrate. So it's usually made from a lot of these ingredients, just kind of all concentrated together, so that you can add that to your aquarium as well. So this is all the kind of stuff that we'll use to create a blackwater habitat like this in our Rio Negro exhibit.
So can you explain to our viewers kind of what this does beyond the obvious of turning the water kind of this dark, murky brown color, which from what I understand is exactly what the water would look like if you went out to the Rio Negro. But from my understanding of this process, it also does a few other things to the water by steeping all of those delicious looking leaves in there.
You are correct in that these are obviously turning the water that brown color. So the process that's happening right now is when we add all of these leaves to the water and the driftwood and all of that stuff, they're releasing something called tannins into the water. And tannins are what produce that brown color. And a lot of times you might look at a tank like this and think, ugh, really dirty, needs a water change. But this water isn't dirty, it just has a lot of those tannins, and the tannins are really important for the fish in our Rio Negro exhibit. So one of the things that's important to think about when we're keeping fish here at the aquarium is that all fish live in different types of water. So as you probably know, there are freshwater fish and there are saltwater fish, but there are lots of other water parameters that we have to think about when we are creating our habitats. So one of the ways that we'll figure out what type of water our fish will do the best in is we look at their wild habitats. So in this case, the Rio Negro is a tributary of the Amazon, and as the name suggests, it is a huge blackwater habitat.
Cool.
And if you can imagine, it's running through the Amazon rainforest. There are trees everywhere. So there are leaves, there's driftwood, there's seed pods falling into the river all the time. So it's creating those natural tannins in the water. So the reason that we would want to mimic this habitat is there are a couple reasons. The one really big important reason is that when those tannins are being created, that's actually also these leaves and driftwood releasing acids into the water. And those acids lower the pH, so they make the water more acidic. And because all of the fish in our Rio Negro exhibit and a lot of the fish in the Amazon are used to that really acidic water, that's the type of water they thrive in. So we want to make sure that the habitat that they have here at the aquarium is nice and acidic, because that will keep them really healthy. The other reason that we want to add all of this stuff to the water is that it creates a lot of cool, natural looking habitat, and provides all of our fish places to explore, places to hide, and keeps them feeling really comfortable so that they can exhibit their natural behaviors.
That's awesome. So not only is it creating the perfect environment for them, it's also adding some enrichment, some of the things that they would naturally get in the wild to kind of stimulate their brains and their bodies, just like they would if they were hanging out in the Rio Negro for real.
Yep.
So I love that. I think that's something that our visitors don't always understand when they come and they check out the Rio Negro exhibit. They just think, oh, look at this murky tank. Where are all the fish? But it's supposed to look like that. And I think it gives a really good appreciation of kind of what the natural habitat for those animals would be like. And I don't know about you, but it always like transports me to the Amazon, and I'm like, ah, I'm there. Very cool. I love that, Allison. So I guess speaking of their natural habitat, is black water habitat a common occurrence in the Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Rio Negro, that tributary of the Amazon, is actually, it's an entire like blackwater habitat. It's the largest blackwater habitat in the world. But there are other parts of the Amazon that are blackwater habitats. There are other rivers in South America, and there are blackwater habitats in Australia, Asia, North America, and Africa. So all over the world, blackwater
Really
habitats, kind of all over the place, creating these really important environments for these fish.
Really cool. And that's all due to the leaf litter that kind of falls into those waterways, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so it's kind of one of the important things to think about when we're talking about blackwater habitats, is that these are created, or these are possible habitats, because of all of the trees and vegetation that are around the river. So it makes it that much more important for us to conserve rainforests and conserve all of those forests. They're making the habitats.
That's a really excellent point, Allison. And I think that's one of the things that I do love to share with visitors, is the habitats that these fish rely on are actually also just so reliant on the land around the waterways where they're living. So it's really important to protect entire ecosystems. And a major challenge that you've probably all heard about for the Amazon, especially this past year, has been climate change, increasing temperatures, the rainforest literally burning down. And without that vegetation, you don't get all of this really amazing leaf litter that falls into the water that then those animals rely on to thrive and to get those nutrients and those hiding places and kind of that dark, murky water that you can see when you come and check out our Rio Negro exhibit. So making sure that we're doing things supporting policies and policymakers that have things like climate change in mind and are protecting entire ecosystems is a really great way that you can help support the Amazon rainforest right from your own home, which I think is pretty incredible. So, well, I think at this point, I really want some tea. And this feels like a good time to wrap it up. So Allison,
I'm gonna take these away.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this really cool animal care task with us. I think this is just one thing that you might not notice just kind of cruising by the Rio Negro exhibit. You probably wouldn't understand all of the work and care that goes into actually making that tank look the way that it does. I also just think that this is a really cool science. So I'm glad we could share it all with you today. Thank you for your expertise in taking excellent care of our animals. And thank you all at home for joining us and learning more about Amazon River tea today. Bye, friends.